Just want to welcome everyone to episode number 1 of our podcast entitled Chair to Chair with Friends of Stauros Ministries. And on this episode today, we're chatting with Robyn Summerfield. Good afternoon, Robyn. Thanks for taking time to meet with us today.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. So tell us a little bit about what connected you to Stauros Ministries.
Well, when I was younger, my dad would go to the meetings and I would just join along. I don't know if I knew why I was there, but but I was there and I had fun. So
We'll show maybe a photo or two of you back then. I know I have one or two of you with your dad. We'll let the folks see, just to know that we've again been connected for many, many years, and mainly through your dad, of course. And tell us a little bit about your background, your upbringing, your childhood. What was it like? Where did you grow up, and what was it like growing up, and how was home life?
Well, we moved around a little bit. My mom and dad were separated, so I was back and forth, as well as just moving. Like my mom would move to a different location, and my dad would move to a different location. A lot of times we lived with my grandparents, whether that be on my mom's side or my dad's side. I've done both. I have a older sister and an older brother, not from the same dad. We didn't live together either. My sister, she came a lot and hung out with me. My brother would come sometimes too. But mainly it was just me in the house until Clara was born. And then I had Clara, my little sister, around. So.
Yeah. Okay. I understand that you lost your baby sister, Clara. You mentioned we've been getting together, as the listeners wouldn't know, but we recently finished a study with Trina Johnson, and my wife on occasion, and yourself, looking at grief and mourning. Particularly, in light of your father's passing in 2024. But then as we got to know you, we realized that you had lost your sister a number of years ago, right? You were probably 10 or 12 years old?
Yeah, I think I was 12. I actually have it down here because I was like, I want to remember what I was saying. I was 12. So it was 2015.
Yeah.
That would have been 10 years ago, just recently.
Yeah, I saw that there was a post on Facebook from your sister, Tiffany, mentioning the anniversary of Clara's passing, and saddened to hear that. But what do you think you learned about grieving or mourning? In our study, if you remember, the author suggested that grieving was something that we do internally, and then mourning is really the way that people see us dealing with the loss.
Right.
Can you anything about those two dynamics that maybe you learned through the study that we went through that you maybe hadn't previously done, or something that maybe over the years you did to grieve?
Yeah, I would say it's for me, it's different for every loss that I've experienced, especially just because of like growing. Like, of course, everything's going to be different because I'm different. But I feel like with Clara, I had a lot of people who I kind of felt like I was going through it with. So grieving, I would say, was a lot easier, and I didn't have to mourn like as much as to some other losses that I've experienced.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel as though so would that be different from the loss of your dad then? Process?
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to share about that in ways that it's a little different?
So for me, I'm the only child of my dad. So I didn't have anyone to relate to in the situation.
Right.
I definitely had support, but it just wasn't the same.
Sure. Tell us about your relationship with God. When was it that you maybe first looked to him for help or for hope? When do you feel like he first made himself real to you and made known to you?
I was really little. I remember going to church with my grandmother, and I don't know, I just always kind of knew. I just always had like that sense, I guess. But I remember just knowing, and then one day just asking my grandmother about baptizing and all that stuff, and there wasn't ever a moment, I should say. It has kind of gradually grown with me. I do feel like, for me personally, I'm not gonna realize it until I go back and look at it. Like later, I go back in my head and I look at the situation or the whatever. Then I'll realize, like, oh, that I get it now. But like in the moment, it's hard to.
It is, right?
Realize, yeah.
Yeah, and I think as we discussed over the last few weeks, you and I, that I had mentioned to you, asked you to go through a timeline, and again, for the listeners watching, it would be, just take a line down the middle of a sheet of paper and put negative experiences and negative circumstances in life for yourself in 5-year increments. Being quite young, somebody who would be my age, 60 plus, we would do 10-year increments. And on the right side, write the positive experiences and positive things. And that really can be helpful. That really illustrates what you're describing, right? As you can then see it on paper where life wasn't so good, where bad things might have happened in those segments. And then conversely, where good things were happening and where we can maybe see God's hand at work. And that's part of the reason for that, is to be able to know that God is with us, God is helping us, and we don't even always notice it, right?
Right.
But, and I do think one of the goals too, though, as you grow, Robyn, and as we get together and meet and spend time, is to sort of bring that recognition period in closer, so that as time goes on, you can see his hand working more quickly, or more right after it's happening, or even in the midst of it, right?
Right.
And so that does help to build our confidence and help us to, again, just deepen our connection with him, right? The soul care study is about that. It's really about our soul being tended to in our innermost being. Tell us about your relationship with your boyfriend, Jay. Give us some insight as to how you met, and also maybe how you feel like you complement each other in your lives together.
So it's funny. I actually was, while I was going over these questions, I was asking him, because when I first read the question, I didn't actually know what that actually meant. Like,
Okay.
It's just weird because I've never been asked that question. Like, how do you compliment someone else? Like, I don't know. I never thought about it. So I had to really think about this question.
Good.
But yeah, so we met in middle school. I think I wrote down like what year that would have been. Yeah, it was 2015 is the year we met, same year Claire passed. But we really started talking in 2016. So we had a class together, and he like sat behind me, I think at first, and he would steal my folders and binders and draw all over them.
Okay.
And then return them. So that's kind of how we met. And then we've just been inseparable since.
Yeah.
So.
Would you say love at first sight?
No.
No. Okay.
I would not say that.
Oh my. Okay. Took a little bit then.
Yeah. No. I definitely, when we first met, had interest in him, but it wasn't nothing. I didn't like see him and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to marry this person. But I don't,
maybe we'll cut this part out so he doesn't.
Right. He might say different. I don't know. But yeah, it pretty much just started out just him picking on me. And then we went through school, and I moved. I think it was 9th grade, and then shortly after he moved, not that far from me, and so we ended up talking again. And yeah. The compliment each other thing, I feel like he is very spontaneous.
Okay.
And like, just kind of crazy in a sense that I'm not. Like, I'm very, like, I like my routines, and I like to have plans. And he's just like, let's just do whatever, whenever, however. And so, but I think that's really good for me though, because if I didn't have him, I probably would just be stuck in my routine, and that isn't good always. So.
Right, not always.
Yeah.
Glad you added that in there.
Yeah.
By the way, I've seen some of his drawings. Actually, one of the evenings that we met together, he joined us, and while we were going through our study, he was listening but doodling along.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with that. I'll show a picture as well to the audience here, that they can just see his skill in that. So yeah.
And so when I asked him, his response was that I give him direction in life, because he doesn't need the direction. He just wants to go whenever, wherever.
Sure.
But I kind of put that in his life and give him a little bit of direction. So
that's good, and that's good. And I think similar to seeing God's hand at work in retrospect, looking back, it might be helpful for you to do a little more about complimenting each other. Write down some things and talk about that some. So as we're talking today, we're sitting at the farmyard, which is one of the places where you work in Parkton, Maryland. And I learned from you that, am I correct that it's an agritourism venue? Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Okay. Agritourism, and in fact, we did a little video. I'll put that in the comments section back in January of one of your workday. But tell us a little bit about how you came to work here. What do you like about what you do? And do you see the work that you're currently doing something that you'll probably continue on in your future, at least for a while?
Yeah, so this is my favorite question because I can talk forever about the farmyard. But
Okay.
In high school, when we first moved to the Hereford zone, we moved on to the Wilsons' property at the time. So we moved on to that property, which was literally like right next door to the farm. And I met Renee, and she told me about the farm, and I needed learning service hours to graduate, because you need like a certain amount of hours to graduate.
Okay.
So I started working here in the fall, and I got all my hours. I actually got way more hours than you needed because I was here so much. And then after that, I was in a career class, and I ended up doing an internship, so through the farmyard. So I was intern, and that's kind of when I started taking on the role of event coordinator. So I was doing that along with, as an intern, you do whatever, whenever, for whatever reason. You don't ask questions.
Right.
So I was doing a bunch of things, but I was doing a lot of event coordinating and a lot of animal care. So as time went on, I won an award for my internship. And
through the school system?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yep.
Okay.
So once I graduated, I just kept coming, and now I'm employed. So
Okay.
I don't any longer do event coordination, but I am the animal husbandry chair. So.
Okay. And again, I'll post a video in the comments section of a portion of your workday anyway, right?
Right.
It's more than
Yeah.
what the viewer will see, but that's pretty exciting. So do you see this to be something, this type of work to be something you'd like to continue for a while?
Yeah, I see myself staying with the farmyard for a long time. I don't have any plans to leave, especially anytime soon, so.
And you've also mentioned before that you work with youngsters, you work with kids
Yes.
throughout the week, and tell us a little bit about that.
So I run a chore chart program, and we have kids come and help us feed and take care of any other chores that need done around the farm. But they love it, and they get to learn responsibility and just hard work and making sure everybody gets taken care of. Even in the rain and the snow and and everything else. So that would be like more of a daily program, and then we have camps and classes and stuff like that kids can sign up for and come to and learn.
And you'll be starting camp next week, correct?
Yes.
For a few weeks or a week?
Yep. Yeah, it's a week, and then we'll do another week in next month, and then we'll keep going if we want to. I don't know.
Sure. Gotcha. Very good. Very good. How would people, I'll put a link to the farmyard as well in the comments section, but folks would just go on the website if they were interested as well.
But our other programs, we have like our riding lessons and all that good stuff, which continues to have availability.
Very good. Yeah, well, again, we'll put a link to the farmyard in the comments section. So a little bit ago, you mentioned with you and Jay that he would be more spontaneous, you're more of a planner. I sent you some assessments just about a week or so ago about temperaments and personality types and that. We're going to do some more of that and maybe do a study on that. But as you sent your results back, your highest temperament trait was melancholy. That would be my highest temperament trait as well. And a couple of the traits of that are introverted, reserved, a lover of routines. But also, Robyn, one of the negative attributes of melancholy temperament is that sometimes folks would have a bit of low self-esteem and be a bit pessimistic. But on those first traits, though, the introverted, the reserved, the lover of routines, you would see that all to be commensurate with how you would see yourself?
Yes, very much so.
Very much so, yeah. Also, you did an assessment on spiritual gifts, and you tested high in exhortation, which I tested high in. That's sort of I don't know if it's a fancy word, but the real word is encouragement. So somebody who is gifted in exhortation is one who has just this ability to encourage people, right? To help them see what's good. And I suppose maybe for myself anyway, some of that might be born out of the temperament of melancholy. In other words, because I'm prone to be negative on things, I trained myself, or I learned how to see that which is good, and then try to share that with others, right? And then you also tested in giving, and we talked about that some last night, where it's more so giving of your time and helping here at the farmyard. You know, like you said, you put in more hours for your community service than you needed to, right? And that's probably part of, because that's who you are. And then gifted in mercy as well, and really the way that that's described, that when somebody is, when you hear of someone or see someone faced with a difficult situation, you sort of immediately feel badly for them. Does that make sense? Would that sound right? Yeah. Whereas others might say, well, they deserve what they get, or that they're there because they, whatever, right? Whereas you would, your heart would drop a bit maybe, or just be saddened by that. Does that sound fair enough? Yeah. Is there anything you've learned over the years that you feel has really helped you to be the person you are today? Some difficult things you've been through, or some good things you've been through, and also along with that, anything you might want the listeners to hear that might be helpful for them based on what you've been through in your life so far.
Yeah. So I feel like I always say, like, my one thing is there is no excuse. So, like, I feel like I've gone through a lot in my life, and that doesn't give me an excuse or a reason to act any certain way. The things you go through are only helping you grow, and that they shouldn't tear you down, even though it might maybe in the moment feel like they're tearing you down, but something that my mindset is, like, again, even if something bad is happening, like, there's still other things in your life that need to be taken care of, or in other people's lives that need to be taken care of. So gotta just keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Well, there's a verse in the Bible, Romans 8:28. I'm sure you've come across it before. It's a very popular verse, so to speak, and it says, God causes all things to work for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose.
I also think that the things that you go through, like the losses and everything, for me, like, you don't just deal with them and then that's it, then you move on. Like, I think you'll forever mourn. It just might look differently.
Well, that's true, right?
So yeah, so like that would, like, that was an example for a loss. Like, you might forever mourn, but like you might also mourn a situation that happened, whether it be a loss or not, years later as well. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think that's good to recognize that, and for the listeners, that we are often, sort of urged to get over things or just get past it or whatever it might
Right.
be. And I mean, everybody is so different, right? You mentioned that earlier. But I do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And we hope that the listeners to this podcast will find some encouragement themselves, in the things that you've shared and the things they're going through. And hope that those who might visit the farmyard feel like they know you a little bit better having heard from you today. So thank you, Robyn. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of course.